Hello once again, automotive enthusiasts. Let's get straight to the point. It's becoming increasingly difficult to find new cars with manual transmission being sold at dealerships, and the market for used vehicles with automatic transmission is also growing significantly. In other words, the number of vehicles with automatic transmission is on the rise in the Brazilian scenario, but this also raises questions for owners regarding the maintenance of this type of transmission. So today, I need to alert you about when you should change the automatic transmission fluid and when you shouldn't. Well, let's start by talking about when you should perform this maintenance. In many manuals, we already have guidance written, indicating the replacement interval. For example, some vehicles specify the replacement of lubricating oil every 120,000 kilometers, others every 80,000 kilometers, or even intervals of around 50,000 kilometers. It's important to understand that the replacement of automatic transmission fluid is a preventive maintenance, and the more preventive maintenance you perform, the less wear the entire transmission assembly will experience. In other words, the durability of the automatic transmission will be greater, and the efficiency will also be better, even helping with fuel economy. Therefore, if you check your car's manual and don't see any explicit recommendation on the change interval, or if it's written in the automatic transmission section that there's no need for fluid replacement, it's important to check in the severe usage section of the vehicle. For some vehicles, there is explicit guidance that no fluid replacement is necessary. However, in the case of severe usage, there is an interval for changing the transmission fluid, and you should adhere to that interval. Now, if you are unsure or want to perform this type of maintenance, a suggestion from experts is to change the automatic transmission fluid every 5 oil changes of the engine. And you might be wondering, but why every 5 changes, and why does the automatic transmission fluid last longer than, for example, the engine oil? There are several reasons for that. Firstly, as I mentioned, the more preventive maintenance you perform, the greater the durability of the transmission assembly. Regarding the durability of the lubricating oil, it is directly related to the fact that the automatic transmission operates in a completely enclosed environment and does not have direct contact with external agents, such as in the case of the engine. The engine lubricating oil, on the other hand, comes into contact with combustion products, fuel vapors, and even the air, which can be laden with impurities. This contact leads to an increase in contaminants in the lubricating oil, causing degradation and a reduction in its properties. In the case of automatic transmission fluid, it exclusively comes into contact with internal components, which can undergo much higher degradation, especially under severe usage conditions. This could include off-road conditions, carrying heavy loads, towing trailers, and particularly during intense traffic, where the lubricant is prone to overheating. Therefore, changing the fluid every 50,000 kilometers will contribute to the durability of the assembly. However, if the manual recommends a longer interval, you can follow it confidently. The crucial aspect is to use the lubricating oil recommended in the manual, adhering to the specified standards or choosing an oil that exceeds these properties. I believe many people might be thinking, well, performing maintenance like this must be very expensive. It's important to put it on paper to understand the costs relative to the mileage. In most cases, maintenance costs, such as the replacement of automatic transmission fluid, can be cheaper than changing engine oil. This is because, as I mentioned earlier, the interval for changing transmission fluid is much longer. If you add up, for example, 5 engine oil changes, the cost can be much higher compared to the cost of transmission lubricating oil. So it's important for you to first assess this cost. Also, take into consideration the cost of repairing an automatic transmission, which in many cases can easily exceed 5,000 Brazilian reais and, in some vehicles, even surpass 20,000 reais. Therefore, preventive maintenance is essential to avoid problems, and it's precisely when you encounter issues with the transmission that it's not recommended to perform this type of maintenance. This is because, as I mentioned to you, the replacement of lubricating oil is a preventive maintenance measure, and the oil itself won't fix mechanical problems in the transmission. To determine whether you can proceed with this type of maintenance or not, it's crucial to take your car to a workshop for an evaluation. Often, through a simple assessment, it's possible to identify whether this type of maintenance is feasible, for example, through a test drive. If your trusted mechanic notices any slipping, high noises, jolts, or difficulties in gear shifts, it can indicate mechanical problems and wear of internal components. Once again, the lubricating oil won't resolve this type of issue. Using the machine that performs the oil changes, it's also possible to check certain parameters, such as the pressure in the automatic transmission line, the pressure of the lubricating oil, and the pressure of the transmission oil pump. With these parameters, it's possible to identify if there is significant wear and tear in this assembly. So, the third method would be something very simple as well, which is through the sampling of the lubricating oil itself. If, upon removing this oil, you notice that it is very dark, especially if it is not translucent when placed against a light, and particularly if you observe a significant amount of solid debris, such as iron filings, this may indicate that the transmission has significant wear and an excessive buildup of sludge. Like any good lubricating oil, if you don't clean it, all these impurities will be directed towards the valve body, towards the solenoid valves. These components are responsible for controlling the flow and pressure of the lubricating oil, which then moves small pistons, activating the friction discs that determine the gears and perform the shifts. Therefore, with this clogged element due to sludge, the automatic transmission will cease to function or become stuck in a single gear. In such a situation where the transmission already shows a lot of sludge, the replacement can become risky. As I mentioned to you, it's crucial to conduct a thorough assessment, whether through a test drive, parameters obtained from the lubricating oil pressure, or visual analysis of the oil. Can I top up the transmission oil level? It's important to pay attention. If you find that it needs topping up, you also need to perform some checks. Firstly, something simple: if the level is low, it may have been analyzed by checking the lubricating oil, meaning that due to the sampling or withdrawal of the oil, the level might be low. However, it could also be something more serious, such as lubricating oil leaks from the transmission or a defect in the heat exchanger, causing the lubricating oil to flow towards the cooling system or leaking. So, if you need to top it up, it means you have transmission problems. Another point concerns the color of the lubricating oil. Like engine oil, lubricating oil will undergo a color change. In other words, new oil is initially red and completely translucent, but as you accumulate mileage, the lubricating oil has its role in cleaning internal components, protecting against oxidation and corrosion. The lubricating oil experiences significant temperature variations along with wear and tear on internal components, leading to a gradual darkening of the oil. This is entirely normal and occurs due to its natural action. For all your family and friends who have a car with automatic transmission, which is quite common today, be aware of this topic. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for upcoming content. A big hug, and see you next time. Remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and give it a thumbs up.